One more minute. Okay, we will start. Being that this week is Parshas by Yisro, which we learn about the giving of the Torah, but today also happened to be Tu B'Shvat, which is the Reish Hashanah for the trees. We will say a small word that connects the two. In general, we find that the Torah is compared to wheat, barley, but at other times we find that the Torah is compared to wine and fruits. In Chassidus, it explains what is the key difference between wheat, barley, and for that matter, water also, and fruits and wine, is that wheat and barley, flour and water are essential items for a person to live with. Then he needs them to live, as opposed to fruits and wine are not things that you need. You may eat them for enjoyment. They're many times given as dessert. They're not the main meal. And we find these two aspects in the Torah itself. There's parts of the Torah that we consider essential. The revealed aspects of the Torah, Gemara, the Halacha. You have to know what to do. That is the essential part of the Torah. And that is the part of the Torah that is compared to wheat, water, is things that you need to live with. Then there's parts of the Torah that, the hidden parts of the Torah that we can compare to fruits, wine, oil. Those are the hidden aspects of the Torah. On Tu B'Shvat, which, as we said, is Hashgacha Pratis, it falls out in Parshas Yisro. But on Tu B'Shvat, we celebrate by eating fruits, not wheat, not barley, not the essentials, but the fruits. The fruits are things that are extra, things that gives us pleasure. So on the one hand, you would say that the fruits, since they're extra, they're not needed. They're compared to the hidden parts of the Torah, the deeper aspects, the Kabbalah, the Chassidus, and so on. They're extra. But on the other hand, it's specifically the fruits that we celebrate. When you just have the bread, the wheat, which the parts of the Torah that are compared to wheat and bread and water, so it's a very dry Torah. You're having only the essential. You're only doing things that you need to do. Why? Because you were told to do it. You're not doing anything extra. You don't have any enjoyment in it. You don't necessarily know the underlying meanings and reasons behind everything in the Torah and why you do what you do. You're just doing it because it's essential for you to live. So you have to do it. You have to follow what it says, but you don't have any enjoyment to it. On the other hand, when you have the fruits of the Torah, the underlying reasons, what gives it life, the energy, the soul of the Torah, then you could take pleasure in the Torah. You enjoy it. You have a geschmack, as they say in Yiddish, in doing what it is that you're doing. And therefore, it's actually essential that we have not only the bread part of the Torah, but the fruits part of the Torah, especially nowadays, that people have to have an enjoyment, understand why they are doing what they are doing, and understand the underlying reasons behind it. And therefore, on Tu B'Shvat, when we celebrate the fruits, so we're celebrating both this, the inner parts of the Torah, the reasons behind what we do, But also on the flip side, we're also celebrating the pleasures, the extras that Hashem gives us. There's the essentials that Hashem gives us. There's things that we need to live. And then we realize in our lives that there's things that are extra. That the truth is they're luxuries. We could live without it. We can manage. They're just an extra thing. We were perfectly fine without it. But it's a luxury, and it's nice to have luxuries. And when we serve Hashem in a way that we're not just particular, just doing what we have to do, getting away with the bare minimum, but we have the richness of the Torah, the customs, the reasons, we enjoy it, we put our energy into it, we put our life into it, so too Hashem reciprocates and gives us the extras in life, not just what we needed, but also gives us an enjoyment, the extra things that we need in life. And that's what we celebrate on Tu B'Shvat, realizing that Hashem gives us not just what we need, but extra, a lot of extras, a lot of luxury. And so too we, when we're giving back to Hashem, we reciprocate. It's not really us doing to Hashem that Hashem should reciprocate to us, but it's really quite the opposite. That it's because God is giving to us that we need to reciprocate, to give back to God and give Him, not just be yotze with the mitzvahs, but actually put life and energy into what we do. Moving on to a bite-size chassidus. So last week we were talking about how the leaders of the generations, the Chachamim, we said that in truth all souls come from the same source, but their souls, when they come down here, they're still connected to their source, as opposed to the average person on the way. He got stopped off in many different places until it got here, and until it got down here, it's not really discernible its real source. Based on this, the Alter Rebbe explains we could understand the mitzvah, one of the mitzvahs in the Torah. It says in the Torah that you should connect yourself, attach yourself to Hashem. Different Mefarshim learn it from different psukim. Rambam learns from one pasuk, Rashi learns it from a different pasuk. But be as it may be, there is a pasuk, there is a mitzvah that you're supposed to attach yourself, so to speak, to God. And the question the Gemara asks is, how could you attach yourself to God? And the Gemara answers that you do that through attaching yourself to the Talmidei Chachamim, meaning the tzaddikim. How does attaching yourself to tzaddikim accomplish that you're attaching yourself to Hashem? But based on what we explained in Tanya, we can understand that by attaching yourself to the tzaddik, to the nasi, the one whose soul, even down here, it's bright, and you can see how it's connected to Hashem. So too we're getting our connection to Hashem is coming through this, that something, a soul that's constantly connected to Hashem, even when it comes down here. And the truth is, the Tanya explains that it's not just us who attach ourselves to the tzaddik who is getting our energy down here from the tzaddik, but the truth is every person gets their energy from the tzaddik in every generation. In other words, there's a tzaddik, the tzaddikim in every generation, and through attaching ourselves to the tzaddik, we get our energy. But even someone who thinks he's not attached, even someone who thinks that he's going against the tzaddik, he is also getting his chayas, his energy from the tzaddik. And this explains, from this is we understand the key concept, not only about getting the chayas from the tzaddik, but in general, how energy comes down into this world when seemingly there's things that not only are not connected to godliness, but seem to be against God. They're fighting against God. But this is just like somebody throwing the language of the Tanya's command, the Sadi Basar Katve, somebody throwing something from his back. In other words, you're giving the energy, but not face to face, not in a way of that you want to give, but just like you have to give. Or another example given sometimes is like a king who made a banquet. He's making a party. He's making a state dinner. And there's many, many, many guests invited to the state dinner. But the truth is that not everybody at the state dinner did the king really want that they should be there. There's many people there that the king doesn't even know that they're there. They're just there. They come along. They're part of the entourage. They're minor officials. They're there once you're having a party. You can't just have a party, 2 people, so you have a big party. But what was the state dinner made for? What was this party made for? It was made for specific individuals that are here. And the same thing, the chayas that is coming, so it's for the kedusha, but at the same time, there's other things around, and those things, so to speak, are also getting their chayas from. Those things are also getting their chayas from the king. So everything, even those who are against the king, or against the tzaddik, get their chayas from the tzaddik. But on the other hand, those who are closer certainly get much more chayas from the king. And this, by the way, does not contradict what it explains elsewhere, that if someone who's wicked gets their energy from shalish klippus atmeis, from the forces of impurity, because the truth is there's different energies that a person gets. There's just like a foot or a part of a person. So on the one hand, it might get its energy from, right, and gets the blood which comes from eating and so on. But that's only one component. Then there's also the soul that gives it life. Without the soul, it also won't be alive. So yes, it's getting, in the one hand, it's maybe getting its energy from the blood, from what it's eating, from the 3 klippus atmeis, and so on. But on the other hand, it's also getting its life energy, what's causing it to exist, its existence, that is coming from godliness. So even if it fights against godliness, it doesn't recognize godliness, it nevertheless is getting its energy and its life source from godliness. And that's how anything in this world, nothing cannot exist without being sort of connected, even if it doesn't know, and getting its life force from godliness. Because in truth, there's no independent existence other than God, and everything is connected to God, as explained elsewhere in Tanya. And that's what we sometimes call the nefesh, even when we're talking about, this is talking about people, but even not people, even things that are tamei, things that are asur, and so on. Everything has that spark of godliness that gives its existence. Even if it's getting its energy, it's getting it from impurities, but it has this connection that it's getting from godliness. Moving on to the short bite-sized halacha. This is sort of a just clearing up a common misconception. When we wash for hamoitzi, so okay, in a regular day of the week, it's usually not a big deal. But when you're on Shabbos, right, there's everybody's washing and so on. A lot of people congregating in the kitchen. People are in conversation. And there's a question, what happens if someone makes a hefsek? Somebody talks after they wash their hands. Do they have to wash their hands again? So the halacha is, it depends. If you spoke after you washed your hands and after you made the bracha al netilas yadayim, although you're not supposed to speak, you're not supposed to make a hefsek, you're not supposed to make interruption unless it's for something for a dvar mitzvah, pass the salt, I need a knife, I need another challah, whatever it is. But other than that, you're not really supposed to interrupt. But let's say you did. If you did, then you don't wash again. You don't make another bracha. You just did, but you weren't supposed to do it. But you continue on going. The bigger problem is making an interruption between washing one's hands and saying the bracha al netilas yadayim, because over there, that's like interrupting between doing part of the mitzvah and making the bracha. Because the washing the hands is really the mitzvah, and the bracha, which in theory would have really been before you washed your hands, right? Normally you make a bracha and then you do a mitzvah, right? Think of lighting Shabbos candles, Hanukkah candles, or even hamoitzi, right? First you make the bracha, then you do the mitzvah. Only by washing your hands, we do it the opposite, because you're washing your hands from dirt. It's not proper that you make the bracha and then I'm going to clean my hands and now I'm going to be clean. No, once you're clean, then you'll make the bracha. Since you are part of the mitzvah is cleaning yourself up, so therefore first you clean and then you make the bracha. But nevertheless, the bracha has to do with cleaning the hands. So therefore, if you make an interruption, according to some, you should wash your hands again if you interrupted there. But if you interrupted later, then you don't have to make you don't have to make another bracha. You don't have to wash again. So just to recap everything from the beginning, first the bite-sized word. We said this week we learned about the giving of the Torah. The Torah is compared to wheat, barley, flour, water. And other times you find that it's compared to fruits, wine, oil, and so on. Which this is the connection to Tu B'Shvat. In Tu B'Shvat we celebrate the fruits, not so much the grains or the water. And the difference we said is between the grains and the water and the fruits is that grains are an essential item and the fruits are not. So the grains represent the essential parts of Torah that we need, and the fruits and the wine represent the deeper parts, the mystical parts, the parts that you sort of would convince yourself that you don't need. But on the other hand, it's specifically those parts which gives energy and which give life and flavor to the doing of and learning of the Torah. Without that, you're sort of missing the soul of the Torah. You're just doing what you need to do, just the bare minimum. And when we celebrate, so therefore on Tu B'Shvat, we celebrate the fruits, which we're celebrating both the extra parts, the mystical parts of the Torah, but also the extras that God gives us. And because God gives us extras, not just our bare minimum, therefore we reciprocate and give God and serve God, not just to the bare minimum, but giving extra, giving life, pleasure, energy into what we do. And then we explained the mitzvah of BiteSize Dvaku. We said you connect yourself to Talmidei Chachamim. That's how you connect. That's how you fulfill the mitzvah of connecting yourself to Hashem. We explained that is because, based on what we learned in the previous week, that by connecting it at the tzaddik, the soul, when he comes down, it's still shining how it's connected to above, to Hashem. Therefore, when you connect yourself to the tzaddik, you are connecting yourself straight to the source, so to speak, of godliness, of God. And therefore, you're connecting yourself to Hashem. And we said even things that seemingly are against Hashem, they still also get their chayes straight from Hashem, or the people get their chayes straight from the tzaddik, even if it's as a sideways, you're throwing from his back as the extras, but nevertheless he still gets the chayes from the tzaddik. Then we explained the halacha that if you talk after you washed for hamaitzi, if you already made the bracha al netilas yadayim, you do not have to wash again. You do not have to make another bracha. Just be careful next time not to interrupt. However, if you interrupted between washing and making the bracha al netilas yadayim, then already that's a much bigger issue, and according to many, you would have to wash again for hamaitzi. Have a good night.